What is up, folks? Gideon Williams, your co-host with the Auto Trends podcast. Lucas Welk, we are back. Another week of great guests, another week of great content, another week of here for the industry, the voice of the industry, from your automakers to your parts industry to technology. We are here, and we want to welcome an awesome guest today, the CEO of Gamut, Tunc Kip. What is up, Tunc? How are you, brother?
I'm well. Thank you guys for having me here. I hope you guys are well also.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, we're really excited. Lucas and I, we've been having a good chat about, everything that you do and just really where the industry's going, what the industry is happening. And I'd say, I don't know, Lucas, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but we are honored to have you on the Auto Trends podcast and really just share your vision, share your insights. We love having visionaries on our show because we think there's a lot of future value there. You've obviously been around the industry for many years, and so it's really an exciting time to really just dive deep into some topics I think that are important to you, but are also important in our industry, and just really kind of try to peek behind the curtain to understand where is the industry, where can the folks look ahead to, and go from there. But yeah, so Tunc, we really want to just thank you for having you on and appreciate your time.
Likewise, yeah, thank you so much. And Gideon, we talked before this interview. It's funny because, I follow Tunc on LinkedIn, and we didn't know each other, all that well. We exchanged some communication via email, a few messages. And if you follow this guy on LinkedIn, he's everywhere. And that's one thing I really admire. I mean, one day he's at Ford, the next day he's at GM, the next day he's over here. And, if you do follow him on LinkedIn, it's fascinating because he knows the industry and he is virtually everywhere. I swear to God.
Well, he gets around. He gets around. He's got quick feet.
That's right. I didn't want to say he gets around, but all right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we stay connected with the industry. We stay in touch, and we try to be in places where we can connect with other individuals that are making valuable contributions to the industry. And some of it, obviously, is by direct visits. Some of it is by attending various events and conferences. And so we think that involvement is very critical. So, but yeah, I'm glad that it's being noticed, and I'm glad that it's noticed as a positive on our part.
No, I think so. Yeah, and Gideon, how often do we talk on this podcast about how much the personal connection still is very relevant? Although you've got to have the social media and online presence, but you probably know, and you can probably give us better insights than anybody. Is how valuable is it that you still make those personal connections, that you look people, give somebody a handshake, speak face to face, versus just that, social communication that most people just have now.
Yeah.
It's still probably extremely valuable.
Oh, extremely. And then also you have to keep in mind what everybody else is doing. Obviously, like everybody else is sending little emails, LinkedIn requests and all these things. Sure. And at the end of the day, the ones that set themselves apart and like the ones that actually deliver the message in an effective way, they get ahead and they build rapport, they establish relationships, and that's kind of what we're focusing on. And then back in the day, I picked up a book that was on persuasion, and that something from that book really stuck with me. And it was pointing out 3 conditions that you have to meet in order to persuade someone. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's the aim always, but in order to make a connection, there's some level of persuasion that's embedded in there. The 3 A's that they were referring to were, one was attraction, so attract someone to connect with you maybe, and then attention, you have to be able to capture their attention. And the third thing was affiliation. So there's some kind of common value, common objective, common association that you want to have with the individual that you're reaching out to. And we always keep that in mind. And with all these events that we go to, and then whatever we're doing for the industry, we try to make sure that we definitely have that affiliation piece in there as well.
Right.
I think that is so critically important and critically valuable. I was just talking with a peer, a colleague, an old colleague of mine, And we were talking about technology, right? And how everything's evolving. I mean, look at us here. We're sitting here having a face-to-face conversation through our computers, or at the end of the day, technology's obviously continued to evolving. It's obviously evolving also in our industry, but you can never replace that human connection, right? That embracement, that, I'm just a big believer that when you look at business in general, but also outside of business, right? We all have families. We all are stewards of life to some degree, right? Trying to make as much value as we can, make this place better for our children and our grandchildren. Is when you have, it's about that kind of connection. I mean, like, to your point, the affiliation and the attraction. And I love that. I think that that's such a critical piece that I think actually the generation probably behind us, and again, I don't want to be that person that's always like, well, the generation behind us is always, they're worse off, right, or whatever, because we always go, that's a cyclical evolution there. But I think that's slowly being lost with the social medias and the technology and everything that's happening. People forget about that human connection is so invaluable, and it's important that we keep it alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, hey, Tunc, Lucas and myself really appreciate your time and coming on. I think you have so many great insights. I love following you and just understanding what you got going. I think you have some really intriguing stuff.
Sure.
Certainly for myself, I love the industry. I'm an industry guy. I am a steward of the industry. I want to see it evolve, obviously for a better future, not only with the environment, but also for us as consumers, right? We're all consumers. And transportation is a very, very big part of our daily life, whether it's industrial, whether it's, for pleasure, or whether, however we're moving around from point A to point B. But I would love to just dive a little bit deeper into kind of understanding a little bit more on your background. Like, where'd you grow up? Like, how did you get in the industry? What are some things that, I don't know, I've always been intrigued by, great leaders, and I read a lot of books on great leaders, and they're intriguing to me. And I love to understand, their background and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting me in a category with that you refer to as great leaders. I don't know if I'm
100%.
like up to
100%.
any of those criteria yet, but I think I may have led some type of activity in my past that led to good results. So that's one qualification. I think we can check that box. But I grew up in Turkey. I was born in Turkey, and I went to school there all the way through high school. And when it was time for college, one thing I was considering was studying abroad. So obviously, like, from the perspective of someone who's not in the U.S., and then U.S. was a big consideration because I had gone to an American high school, which gave me like some level of exposure to the culture. So there's a bit of a comfort factor involved in that too. And for the very first time I left Turkey, I left a coastal town. It's the third largest city in Turkey now, with about 6 million people, maybe over 6 million people in population, but right by the water, like beautiful beaches and everything, mild, weathers. And I left Turkey and I flew to Lawrence, Kansas, which is right in the middle of the continent, right? And it was January 3rd, snow everywhere, freezing temperatures, and it was kind of a neat, abrupt transition that really helped me move out of my comfort zone and really just make the best of the experience here. And I started off at the University of Kansas. I studied computer engineering there, and then I went on. I always had in mind that I wanted to combine that knowledge with some level of business understanding and business principles, and I went on with my MBA, which was an interesting and a unique opportunity also. It was an American university based in Italy. It's called Cimba, and it's supported by about 30 American universities. It's full American curriculum, but you're in Italy for 11 months of the program, and then for the last final month you come back to the US for the degree granting university, which was Kansas at the time, but it's University of Iowa right now. So you get full MBA curriculum plus some leadership training, plus problem solving techniques, training, and that, like, all I mentioned these because they were the parts, like those were the parts that like really made the biggest impact, not necessarily the base curriculum, but the Six Sigma training that I received during that time, and all of the coaching principles that we went over, and the consulting projects that we did for outside companies. So it was very compact, condensed program that left me with a lot to really unpack afterwards and utilize in my career. And I came back, and when I came back, I was looking for opportunities, and the one opportunity that was presented to me was with Napa Auto Parts, and it was a part of their. It was an opportunity to be a part of their Six Sigma program rollout, and I was trained as a green belt, black belt, Six Sigma, with the ability to teach the content also, which led to my like master black belt level. And so I started off with Napa Auto Parts, but the neat thing was that wasn't my first exposure to the automotive industry. So back in 1974, my grandfather had founded a company in Turkey. And I don't know if you had asked like 100 people and said, this is how much money you have, you can invest, what do you want to invest in? I don't think you could find one person, or maybe the one person you could find was my grandfather, who said, I want to invest that money into producing gaskets. And so he set up a company with my father that was focused on, developing and producing gaskets for the automotive industry. Obviously, a lot of farming equipment too, agricultural applications, but engine applications. And at the time, interestingly, gaskets, while there were many OEM assembly operations, a lot of those OEMs were needing to import their gaskets because there was no gasket source that was able to provide basically OEM quality automotive grade products with the documentation that was needed. And so once this facility was set up, it established great relationships with the OEMs domestically because it basically naturally, automatically became a source to them. And the company grew within the OEM segment. And then when my father took the helm in '93, then the company grew further in Europe, and additionally in the aftermarket in Europe and Turkey as well. And we were a very vertically set up operation. We did full tooling, production, design, development, quality control, 100% in-house. So that gave us a lot of agility. And so my father ran it from '93 on, in around so basically, like being a family company, I was always a part of the business conversation, regardless of what age I was, and then what I was actually doing in my career. And so prior to having that opportunity with Napa, I was already going to Apex. I was already going to Auto Mechanicas. So I had some maybe above average level of introduction to the industry in that sense. And once we sort of continued our growth in Europe, we realized there's great potential in the U.S. market too. And so following my time with Napa Auto Parts, which was about 3 years, then I went into other industries doing basically applying or implementing the Six Sigma methodologies for companies like UPS, Aflac, Assurant, and working with them on in various capacities. I was a part of the educational program in times, and then we were delivering projects at times. But it's the same concept and philosophy that is really applied regardless, in a similar fashion, regardless of the industry or the actual environment, because you take a very consistent approach to solving problems, identifying problems, and facilitating that conversation with the subject matter experts. So again, my confidence came from my confidence in the methodology and the process, rather than my confidence in the knowledge of that particular subject matter, which was not always there. Sometimes I went into situations where I didn't really have the knowledge and of that particular subject matter, but that again, that confidence in that process and the proven process led me through it. So kind of coming to a meeting point there, as I transitioned out of my consulting chapter of my career, I moved over to the family business and took on the responsibility to create and implement the U.S. expansion strategy, the marketing strategy, and brand strategy. and that's kind of where I think like entered as a fully dedicated resource to my role in the industry.
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's
Even as
fascinating.
as Gideon and I are looking at the manufacturing industry, it's funny how many companies we come upon that are actually based in Turkey. That we're looking at online and stuff like this that are doing aftermarket parts manufacturing and stuff like that. And actually, Turkey is one of the places I visited quite a few times. I did some hot air ballooning. I went by horseback along the Turkey-Syrian border a few times, and but yeah, lovely country. But yeah, I'm surprised actually how many places we do stumble upon manufacturers that are based in Turkey. I didn't realize, for the size of that country, actually how many there are. And I mean, you can probably expand on that, but it seems to be quite an industry in Turkey.
Absolutely, and it evolved greatly, and I mean significantly. So back, obviously, I mean I just mentioned 1974. What the industry was, the capabilities of the industry were back in 1974. Not even a comparison to right now. So right now, in terms of if we're just talking about automotive, which is also a locomotive, basically like a significant portion of the exports, you can find a supplier that's producing parts to like any of the very well-known brands globally. So there's like existing relationships with all global brands, and not just like one-off kind of example, but strong track record, years of relationship, and strong growth. So that's there. There are great, like just like you said, Gideon, visionary entrepreneurs there that have really like committed significant amount of resources to being a consistent and long-term player in this global supply chain. So there's again very good supply base there, and someone that produces any part you're looking for. So or the capabilities to produce anything that you're looking for at the quality or even better that what you're requiring.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating, and I've got a couple of ideas on that. But I actually am curious on one question.
Sure.
Which is on your grandfather.
Yeah.
Why have you ever talked? I mean, I don't know if he's still with us or not. But condolence, man. I lost my grandfather a year ago. He was 99, so he was an awesome guy, man. I don't know. I've always been interested. Why gaskets? Why?
Yeah,
I mean, like there had to be something going on, right? To say, hey, this is it, guy. I've got to, because that decision, in essence, has impacted your entire life. Right. To some degree.
Right. So it's a little bit I think urban legend maybe. So I don't know what at what percentage is the story, what percentage is the fact, but there's maybe like hopefully I mean I don't know, I mean it's either way it's a great story. But so he was already in the truck parts business, so he already had some like good view of what was going on and what was missing and where the opportunity was, which is visibility. Like that's the main thing in any situation. Visibility is key. If you provide visibility to like the people in charge, mostly, like if everyone is like if everyone is on the same page and good intention, and if the collective goal is to improve things, visibility on its own usually is the key. You provide visibility, and then there you go, progress happens. So he had that visibility, and he was able to see what was going on in the truck market and the agricultural market, and this one particular product category was missing a player that could domestically be a source to like a lot of these OEMs. So he had that in mind. But so this is a fact. So this is the part that there's absolutely a fact. So it's a known thing. The part that's maybe like coming kind of getting like to be a little bit of a mixed situation is he was approached by an investor from outside of Turkey, who was a Turkish investor that was based outside of Turkey, and to basically set up an operation in Turkey. And he was asked to do all of the market research and kind of like say, you know, go study, basically in its simplest description, go travel, study the market. Because I mean, how else are you going to do it back in 1974? There's no other way. Like, unless you're knocking on doors, you're not getting information from anyone.
Yep.
So he travels the country, and then and also regardless of the fact that, like, or despite the fact that now we have so many ways we can do this without getting it off of our chairs, it's still probably the most effective way to go knock on doors and talk to people, like, versus collecting some information online. I mean, I'm like still supporting that as the most effective way, and probably the way that you end up discovering things that you didn't know about. So he did that back in 1974, and then he traveled the country, did a full market research, and learned the market. And then when it was time for them to basically go into this opportunity, go after this opportunity together as partners, his potential partner at the time said he was no longer interested. So he ended up with this, like, basically like vast amount of information on the market, and he truly believed in the potential, and he understood it better than anyone. And so he said, well, in that case, I'm just doing it on my own. And so he starts to, but my father at the time, who had just come back from, like, or he had just graduated from school, studying pharmacology, so which had like chemical composition. Okay, there's some like relevancy there, but still not automotive, nothing. And so they go into this together, and they set it up, and then, like, obviously, like, because they knew so much about the industry, and they also were the ones knocking on the doors, right? So the market knew them and associated
100%.
them with this subject, and so they had great success. But so again, I don't know, like, how the conversation went down with that person that initially made the proposal to, like, have a partnership and set up a facility. So there's even a bigger story about that. So I cut that short. But at the end of the day, when that it's not any different than any other entrepreneur story. There's an opportunity, you identify it, you do your back like, you do your homework, you study, you identify what you need to go after it, you go after it. And if you go after it and the right way, things kind of come together.
I love entrepreneurship. I think it's hard work. Don't get me wrong, Lucas. You and I talk a lot about this. You own multiple companies abroad, and and I think as we look at this, and I'm a student of I think not business, but just I think in general. What do you think about? So you come from Turkey, like, when you think of, because I know a lot of great entrepreneurs that maybe reside today in the U.S., but they are not from here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how? Because I took about 3 years of traveling, around the world, lived in Asia for a couple of years and whatnot. And when I, came back, I grew up in Texas and I live in Florida now. Like, it gave me a completely renowned view of the global economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
How important do you think that piece is in your life, connected to your profession, like having the global perspective? It's got to be immensely valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, extremely. And I think it boils down to a core concept that is to be aware of your qualities, and aware of your surrounding. So anytime you're in a new situation, you basically have to do this again. It just becomes a habit. So if you're traveling, you're doing that. You're aware of yourself and your surroundings. You're aware of yourself, your surroundings. So back when I first came here, I had to, in a way, introduce myself to my environment. I grew up in an environment in a city. I mean, I mentioned 6 million people, but whenever we go back, we run into someone every 5 minutes while we're walking around town. So my wife is not convinced that it's 6 million people, but I mean, she's seen it, so she's very much convinced with how large the city is. But my point is, I grew up in an environment where I knew a lot of people. I didn't have to like introduce myself. I didn't have to like recreate friendships. I didn't have to. I actually didn't even know the concept of networking. And that was something that I was introduced to here, and I now understand, and I have that as a natural part of me. And I don't mean that also as just the ability to like meet other people, but it's also the ability to like make the connections for other people as well. And
100%.
that's really when it starts generating value. But that being said, when I first came here, I had to like reintroduce myself to this new environment that I valued, that I chose, that I wanted to make the best of. And anytime I like moved to a new city, anytime I went to a new client, anytime, so it's all about that task being repeated so many times that you get to a point where you know yourself much better. Because every time you have to like introduce yourself to a new person, every time you have to like tell about what you're doing with your company and all that, you actually like end up learning other ways to present that information. And the feedback that you get tells you more about how more effectively and maybe in a more tailored way you can present that information. So I very much like enjoyed that. I grew to enjoy just throwing myself in new environments. I traveled, just like you said, to many countries and continents. I mean, luckily the automotive industry gives you the opportunities to do that,
sure.
like as business travel too. So just by going to Auto Mechanicas, you can go to like Germany, Istanbul, Dubai, Shanghai, South Africa, Johannesburg, and then you can go to Mexico City. I mean, there's so many options to choose from just by sticking with Auto Mechanica. Then you have all the other shows around the US. So I think like that's a key component, and it doesn't always have to be international travel, but I think the biggest change in culture gives you the probably the most critical exposure to like these the qualities that you have or things that you adapt to. So I value that greatly, and I think everyone should experience that to better like learn themselves, know themselves.
And one thing I want to touch on real quick, Lucas, is Yang, right? Put on by the Auto Care Association, the Young Auto Care Network Group. You're a mentor of that group. We're actually having Joe Delorme on next week, on Thursday, to talk about Yang, talk about the right to repair, really talk about what Dorman's doing from a product perspective, how they're envisioning the future. But as a Yang mentor, I always admire giving back. I'm a big, I believe in a lot of that stuff. First off, thank you for your mentorship in the Yang program. I am a Yang member. I'm about out. I got one more year, and I'm moving on. They're going to kick me out, so I can't get drinks with them at Apex. They have to go on the other side of the the line or whatever. But how has that been? Well, has that been a great experience for you? And appreciate your service on that.
Yeah, fantastic. And so when I first, got involved with the industry, my primary focus was to establish a brand and introduce certain products to the market. So you can do that by taking like a certain approach of just pure transactional marketing. I have this product, good price, good availability, and that's one way, and that's respectable. There's nothing wrong with that. But a more, I think, long-lasting like approach to that is to like get really involved with the industry. And I learned that early on, which has been a huge benefit in terms of my career and every other relationship that I built from then on. And getting involved with the Auto Care Association, getting involved with Yang was a key component of that. And something that I bring up in these mentorship sessions is that, okay, so you can be involved, you can like still kind of keep up with the newsletters and information that's distributed, and you can go to like big events like Apex and kind of still connect with Yang there. But I really think that the difference occurred when I started going to events that were purely focused on building those relationships between members. So like the leadership days, you're there, and everyone's goal is to get to know one another and find out what I can do for you, what you can potentially do for me. And so I think those particular events made the biggest difference. And just it's such a big community that and it's also such an understanding, and it's such a professional community that you realize that you can sit next to your competitor. You could 100%. be selling the exact same product, going after the exact same client, but at the end of the day, that's just how the market functions. And and then in the automotive industry, especially if you're a manufacturer, you often find yourselves in positions where maybe in a certain geography you're competing with one company, and in another geography you're partnering up with them. One product category you're partnering up, the other product category you're competing. And because everyone has this understanding that everyone's just trying to do their best, you're trying to improve upon somebody else's solution maybe, and that gives everyone basically motivation to still be close to your competition, still be close to the market. And I think getting involved with Yang and Auto Care Association sort of changed my view of that very early on, and opened up many opportunities to have conversations with individuals that had the same goals as I did. And Yang and Auto Care Association and all the committees, they're really fantastic platforms for that type of interaction. And I strongly recommend getting more involved as much as possible. And I'd like to bring up, I am proud to say, still to this day, that I hosted the very first Yang happy hour in Atlanta. that started a really neat trend, and then spread over to other cities. And the very first event wasn't very well attended, but it was very.
Doesn't matter.
I think we had the right people, and we had the right photo person, and so we made that event really just be the starting point of a really nice tradition. And so I think those events are also very beneficial. Again, you're there just to chat, just to hang out, just to kind of listen to one another, maybe not even mention the product that you're selling.
Yeah, that comes with time. Yeah. Well, talk us about as we go into your world of Gamut, right? Obviously leading that organization, and I think you said in passing before, some of your friends are not even sure exactly what you do, which I there's a lot. Hey, I've met a lot of very, very successful folks, and I'm like, so walk us through Gamut. What do you guys have going on over there? What's the vision, and just if we were to just learn a little bit about Gamut today.
Sure. And to connect this back to my earlier comment about the gasket business. So we grew the gasket business in the U.S. and became a very recognized brand in the B2B market, heavy duty commercial aftermarket, especially. And it was, again, it continued to be a very vertical operation where we did full design, development, production, quality control in-house, including tooling. And we were very agile. Our development times were significantly shorter. Our lead times were significantly shorter than most other industry sources, which gave us the competitive edge. And when we took on the responsibility, after my father, with my brother, we took on the responsibility of running that operation for about 3.5 years. And when we first took that on, the first, the main thing we did was set out the 2 goals for our vision. And one goal was almost a 50-year-old company, and we've been basically in that product category that entire time. So we had a great deal of expertise. And so we wanted to be valued for that expertise, for that engineering knowledge, for basically our understanding of the product and what made that product better. And so we wanted to become an engineering company. And then the second thing was, anytime we mentioned or brought up gaskets, obviously because the product is more known in the internal combustion engine applications, with the EVs coming in, the outlook for most people seemed like gasket category was just gonna go away. And so we knew that wasn't the case, but it's important to set the market perspective correctly for your brand's future, right? So as a part of as two main topics of our vision, we set out to basically transform the company into an engineering company that was an engineering partner to electric vehicle manufacturers. And our first win was with the leading electric vehicle manufacturer, and it was also for a very unique application that we had great success with. And once we did that, that was the message that the market needed, and that opened doors for us on the EV side of projects, even with companies that we were already working with, but they never considered us as an EV
Absolutely.
source. And so we were valued for our engineering expertise. We were welcomed to design conversations, and huge transformation for a company that was, almost 50 years old. And that really set up the company for its next chapter, for its future. So after leaving our role there, this was back in July 2021, we wanted to follow this with something that would help us prove our claim. And our claim was, we weren't successful in our roles in that with that gasket company because we were gasket experts. We were successful because of the business model, the philosophy, the principles that we had in place, which then led to various actions we took. And so we wanted to create this model that would allow us to test this claim and improve its validity by going into different product categories. And in those product categories, if the claim was true, then we would be able to deliver similar levels of success. And we did. And in the current model, we have our manufacturing partners on one side that we basically integrate into their operation, and we're their sort of special ops team that's going after certain project opportunities in the market, product development opportunities, sourcing opportunities based on their technical capabilities. And none of these are gasket categories. So, and then on the other side, we have opportunities from the market that are coming from OEMs, just like Lucas mentioned, several OEMs that we have great relationships with, leading distributors and manufacturers of the aftermarket. And so we are the organic piece of those various relationships, helping these parties better engage with themselves, with each other, and better utilize the resources available. And so what we do really, in its core, boils down to product development and strategic sourcing. But what we do, in practice, is a very involved process in many ways. Sometimes very technical, sometimes very strategic, and so we just basically help facilitate those relationships at the time. And this has allowed us to expand our network because we're not in one product category. So we're in touch with a lot more people now. It helped us also connect with the more advanced technology piece of the industry as well, the leading technologies. So that was a key aspect of, or key outcome of this model, and also helps us stay in touch with a broader portion of the industry.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating. That's very fascinating.
Yeah. It's an awesome.
And I mean, so what sort of products? Sorry, Gideon. Are you? Would you say is your main area of focus? What are people coming to you, or businesses, companies coming to you and say, we really need help in this aspect? What sector are you seeing that most in, or what particular product sector are you seeing that in?
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of development, or there's an evolution just in every part of the automotive industry, and some of this is happening with the propulsion systems, electric vehicles versus combustion engines, and various other solutions in between. You have hydrogen fuel cell, you have the other technologies there too, and then you also have a lot of changes inside the cabin with your user experience. I mean, most cars now have a screen on the passenger side, so that's almost becoming a standard, your co-pilot screen, and so that ecosystem and your overall experience with the car is evolving. And I mean, I think the best way to refer to it as as the experience with your car. So that experience in some situations involve an autopilot. Some situations involve your interaction with your, like maybe using your phone, your mobile device. And then another involvement is that you maybe no longer, you're not visiting a gas station, you're just constantly, you're charging at home, you're charging at the office, and that's become your like way of interacting with your car. And so there's quite a bit of change in all of those aspects of the automotive industry.
Sure. When you look at the future, okay, we talk about this a lot. Combustion engine, obviously, we've known about that, right? The gasket company. You look at EV and you look at hydrogen.
Yeah.
So I am struggling because like we look at the EV market, we're seeing different signals, right? As far as, is it growing? Is it becoming adopted by the masses, right? Is it becoming a true economies of scale where it's, I buy this particular brand in EV and I'm going to keep buying it generation after generation. My granddad bought his first Toyota truck. I drove Toyota my whole life. He gave me it. And you know what I mean? And we were like, for the last 40 years, there's only been Toyotas in our family. But like when you look at combustion engine, the hydrogen, you look at EV, what's your vision on that? Like, what do we think the future will be? I think there's data on all three of those that suggests positive things as well.
Yeah, I think so. You have one factor, which is like a huge factor. That's the perception of the market, right?
Yeah.
The perception of what the market thinks it needs is basically what it wants, and then the other factor is the actual conditions that the market needs to operate within. And so if we take that market and split it into like civilian market versus commercial market, I think there's a great deal of opportunity when it comes to especially electric vehicles with the commercial industry, because with electric vehicles, and we have one, and automatically you become more aware of how much you drive. And so and actually we should still be aware of how much we drive, even if we need to fill it up, go to a gas station. But when you get into an electric car, you're constantly thinking about your charge, and you're all of a sudden thinking about, okay, how much I drive, how much am I going to drive today? How much am I likely to drive tomorrow? Do I need to charge it? So, again, I've done it multiple times. You can stop by a DC fast charging station and just get a boost very quickly. It's just a matter of a few minutes. But again, it's not a habit that's built into our lifestyle so much. Right. And then the infrastructure is, you have gas stations across from each other, you have a section and then you have 3 gas stations. I always wondered what kind of business model that is. You're just setting up right in front of your competition. But with electric vehicles, I think it's just this piece of our lifestyle that's still kind of not evolving. There. And so you're constantly thinking about your charge. But you're doing that because even in the civilian life, although it's fairly predictable still, we always worry about the unpredictable, right? Oh, what if I have to go this way,
of course,
that place, or what if I don't get the charge tonight? But commercial vehicles, huge predictability, right? It's delivery.
It is predictable. Yeah. They're talking about fastly.
You have tons of past historical data that you can analyze. School buses, Bluebird does a great job on this, and they share a great deal of their own efforts in this category. Your route every day. You know how what distance you're going to drive, and it's not a distance that's over your range on that vehicle. And so building that habit into the overall operation is easier with a commercial vehicle, or with the use of a commercial vehicle. And actually building that habit is making that a part of your procedure or process. You bring the vehicle back, you plug it in. That's it. That's a part of it. But when it's you might not. Maybe you don't feel like doing it that day, and so the next day you have less charge than you thought. So I think that there's a great deal of opportunity with the commercial vehicles first. And I also think that there's maybe in time, with the change of how we perceive what we need out of these vehicles, there's also a great deal of opportunity on the EV side, and the convenience factor is huge. it's not maybe that great for parts business because you have significantly fewer number of parts, also parts that wear tear, and then just parts in general on electric vehicles. So that's a completely different topic of conversation. But I see a great deal of opportunity there. Hydrogen fuel cell with long distance, like commercial trucking, that seems to be a very good option because recently I had attended a meeting. It's led by the Public Service Commissioner of Georgia, Tim Echols, and he brings everyone together with the theme of EV brain trust. And so there was someone from, I think, Kenworth there that was kind of telling us about like the dynamics behind having an EV commercial truck. And like the most important thing is you have to decide, like, do you want range or do you want payload?
Absolutely.
Do you want to carry more, or do you want to carry more of your battery that can get you a longer distance? So I think the battery situation is still a bit tricky. We're going to need higher energy density there to allow a similar level of like work output from these vehicles that are meant to carry weight as a part of their they're basically like value add. But Volvo does great things. Caterpillar does great things with their off-road vehicles that are EV, I think. I mean, so generating that energy, again, that's a separate topic of conversation. But once energy is available, these vehicles, I think, have a huge benefit. And in city environments, they do offer an advantage in terms of like zero emissions. So
of course, that's
buses,
the balance.
That was a concern. Obviously, you have kids, and then you have a giant exhaust pipe that's releasing the exhaust from a huge diesel engine, which was with the scenario back in the day, but it doesn't have to be that way anymore.
For sure.
Bluebird does a good job here.
Well, and I think that's the thing too. I mean, we had Michelle on from CNH, and just talking about like, the industrial side, downtime is bad, right? Downside,
right.
We want less downtime. Anytime you start talking about commercializing, our equipment, downtime is a big factor, to your point, payload and whatnot. I think that's very, very interesting. When you start to look at the global supply chain, obviously, and we're about coming up on time here, but when we look at global supply chain, okay, we have obviously coming out of COVID. Where do you think global supply chain? Do you think it's fully rebounded from the COVID years? Do you think we're on the right track? I mean, we see cost prices are still obviously cost of capital is going up, right? As of late, right? We're going to continue to see that move up and down. Where do we think the global supply chain? What are you seeing on your end?
Well, I mean, rebound, if that's referring to things going back to how they were,
sure.
I don't think that's a realistic expectation, because
that's a good point.
Like basically, there's things you can't unsee, right? Like you saw how things can get really messy really quickly if like you're just sourcing everything out of one source and one like logistics route, and that gets interrupted. And if that's a key component for your product, for your service, that's a big risk. I don't think anyone is now gonna feel as comfortable as like we did back before the pandemic, knowing what can go wrong. And so it's not going to go back. But what's happening is now that I think maybe during that period there were some like allocation or like movement of sources and introduction of like various new sources to maybe previously what the industry considered as the conventional sources for certain product categories. And I'm going to go back to your earlier comment, Lucas. Interestingly, Turkey actually, and I'm not saying it because I'm from there, but Turkey gained a very, very, very notable position in the global supply chain during that period as an alternative source. And then, you're only considered an alternative source if it's temporary, and if you are still the source, you're no longer alternative. So a lot of these resourcing efforts that occurred during that period, they stayed on, and so Turkey became an important source when it comes to the auto parts market, electronics, hard parts, various other like high tech parts that or high or very like high technical requiring technical capability requiring parts, and just kept that position. And so I think rebounding is not necessarily like a realistic expectation anymore, but understanding the new state of things, and realizing that maybe there's a broader approach to what the supply chain might look like. Although again, localization is a key thing. So for certain part categories that offer that. So not all part categories obviously have that opportunity, but for categories that offer that, localization is still going to hang on for a while.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very,
awesome.
Very interesting. So if people want to reach out to you, how should people reach out if they want to get in touch with you, in touch with Gamut? What's the best way?
LinkedIn is the best medium for us because that'll also give anyone who's interested in reaching out to us an initial flavor of the type of interactions we have with the industry, and some maybe like recent activities that we've participated in, and so that'll help maybe present an initial picture of what that topic might be like. So anyone who's interested in reaching out can reach out to me or my brother, who's the co-founder of our company also, and he has a strong background in Silicon Valley, years over there, multiple patents to his name too, and then he used to spend 8 to 9 months out of the year in Taiwan and China overseeing very large projects, and so we have him as a part of our company as a huge asset, and they can reach out to him as well. His name is Timucin, and same last name, Kip. So either one of us, and then if you just Google Gamut, I think we should both show up there anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome, folks. Well, I also could tell you guys, if anyone listening, also, to our Auto Trends listeners, please like, subscribe. That's the best way to support us. And in the event that maybe you missed Tunc Kip or his brother, the co-founders of Gamut, myself or Lucas, just bump us on LinkedIn. We will absolutely connect you guys. It's a really exciting time to be in our industry. First off, it's an honor, Tunc, to have you on, to share your insights, your vision into the industry and what's happening. I'm going to tell you, folks, it is an exciting time in our industry. We are seeing an evolution from combustion engine to EV to potential carbon. And I think that organizations like Gamut are doing us a favor. If you feel the need to get in touch with them, please do. But outside of that, folks, we are the Auto Trends Podcast. We appreciate you guys, and tune in for our next episode coming here very soon. Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for the time.